Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back
Afternoon.
to the second APAC Higher EdTech Innovation Conclave. This is part of a three-day conclave where the first 2 days, yesterday and today, is on higher education, and tomorrow, day three, is on school education. So over the 2 days, we had a host of panel discussions discussing different aspects of education, from the policy making to NEP deployment to technology deployment. So now we have an interesting topic on funding and finance at educational institutions. And it's my pleasure to introduce the panelists and the moderator. We have with us today Dr. Akhil Sahani, Managing Director of the Sahani Group. Welcome, Dr. Sahani.
Thank you.
We have with us Dr. Srihari Prakash Anwad, President of Sri Padmapat Singhania University. Welcome, Dr. Srihari. We have with us Dr. Vikas Singh, Vice Chancellor of ITM University, Raipur. Welcome, Dr. Vikas. And to moderate the discussion, we have Mr. Karun Dubey, Head Business, Intercell Virtual Mentor Network. Welcome, Karun. And before I hand it over to Karun, during the discussion in some time, we'll be joined by Dr. Saili Gankar, Vice Chancellor of DY Patil University. So hand it over to Karun now. It's all over to Karun. It's your show. Thank you. Yeah, Karun, you can take over.
Hi, Karun.
Thank you, Rajneesh.
Good to see Dr. Vikas Singh once again.
Good evening, all, and it's a pleasant day that all of us are gathered in this event, and I thank you all to joining us, in this event. Yeah, I hope I'm audible to you all, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just about now.
That's great. That's great. So, we all play our valuable role in the education system, and we are also at Intercell is trying to complement the education by providing the virtual mentoring. So this discussion for today, regarding how the educational institutions are transforming and giving the best of the services, along with the the challenging times that we have been facing or we had faced in the last 2 years. So now, let's just start discussing that. What do you think, how the education is moving towards the financial, I would say the transformation that has happened in the last 2 years. So I would like to, discuss it with Dr. Akhil.
Okay, thank you, Karun. So just a little background. So I run a group of colleges, which are private colleges. I also have an edtech company. I also used to be part of a venture capital fund that used to invest in education. So I've actually got a perspective of various sorts of funding for the education industry. And I'm also going to take a perspective in terms of, let's say, how this also works globally, because I've worked with universities globally. Let's talk about the traditional funding models, and then what are the new funding models that universities look at. So when you look at conventional education, right, if you're looking at a college or let's say university, by default you have to be a not-for-profit trust or a society, right? So therefore, that's not something that, let's say, conventional equity funding venture capitalists can put in money at the moment. So how does a university grow or a college grow as a non-profit entity, right? So the classic model used to be, okay, either you're a government-aided college, so you depend on government funding. Very often, the government also defines the fees that you can charge for your courses, and what you have to pay your teachers and everything. So you actually land up with a very small margin for growth. Now the problem is that under the guise of not allowing you to profiteer, the amount of money that you had left in the bank after all your operation expenses were not much. So which made it very difficult for you to invest in new infrastructure, new development. So that was always an issue. So therefore, more often than not, the colleges had to go after, let's say, philanthropists or private funders, charitable funders, and say, okay, look, could you help us with developing this new classroom? Can you help us with the new library? And very often you'll have to say that, look, I will then name the library after your dad or after your grandfather. So, there was a win-win. So therefore, that was the conventional model, right? Now, of course, when you look at universities like, let's say, Harvard or bigger ones like that, of course, they do get private funding. I think they got, like Harvard got $100 million from Ratan Tata for setting up a building. But they also have a very large endowment because they go after alums to donate money for them. And in fact, Harvard actually makes more money from the returns of their endowment than from student fees. Now, in a few other big universities globally actually do get a lot of donations from alums. However, in India, we've not really looked at that model. To say, I don't know how many of us have actually had the benefit of getting very generous alums who actually donate money to our universities or to our colleges. And also, we don't go aggressively going after these people. So, minus government funding, minus endowments or money from alums, where do you go about raising money? Now, of course, you can come up with these unaided courses, like let's say now you're allowed to do more private courses. So, for example, a BMS course, a Bachelor of Management Studies, you'd be allowed to charge a higher rate of fees than a BCom, for example. So that gives you some more revenue. I think, luckily, with the new NEP that's come out, the thing is that you can actually start offering more innovative courses, stuff which is not there in the market, and you can charge fees accordingly, and that gives you more revenue. What I'm actually quite interested in is the new notification that came out a few days ago that says that autonomous colleges can actually start offering their own degrees at some point. And that itself could be a game changer if it works out well, because then we become more like a less regulated market. Like you look at Malaysia, for example, right? Malaysia, being a smaller country than us, actually has more international students coming into their education system than India does, mainly because the private colleges and universities in Malaysia have been allowed to charge their fees and come up with new innovations and the government allows them to do that, and they have a easier regulation model. So I think that is one method of raising more funding for colleges. But I think beyond raising fees of students in new courses, looking at doing contract research for industries is another revenue stream. So, for example, we have a lot of great brains, scientific brains, and especially I look at the pharmaceutical industry or look at, let's say, IT. Nothing stops universities or colleges from actually going to industry and saying, look, instead of you doing your own R&D, you contract the research to us. We've got some great brains, we'll do research, and then we'll look at for that. Some innovative universities also looking at commercializing their own in-house research. So Cambridge does that very well. Cambridge has got a biotech cluster just next to it. So a lot of the new biotech innovations in the UK are funded by Cambridge from their own research, and then they take an equity share in the companies that come out, and they get good returns there. So that's another model that we can look at. I think some of our universities are starting incubators, but we're not looking at equity stakes in those incubators or developing primary research out of that. Just two more methods of funding before I hand it back to the rest of the panel. Of course, we all are familiar with the model that some universities in India use, that you have the university and you have the education services company, and you get equity funding in that. But unfortunately, that's not really been able to scale beyond a certain point, because if you look at the IPO market, for example,
Yeah.
most IPOs are not happy to look at these complex models where you are, let's say, listing a education services company based on the cash flow of the trust. So you can get equity funding there, but you have to find a private investor who will buy that share. And at some point, so if you look at the school market, so for example, you may have heard of Oak Ridge Schools, right, in Bangalore, which was actually sold to Northern Anglia. So you can get strategic investors to buy it out, but the classic venture capital model may not be as easy to do, especially when looking at very large universities. I think just the other thing that you may want to look at, which is something that has sort of worked with some innovative universities abroad, is that, and this is maybe not so much from a fundraising point of view, but a cost reduction point of view. A lot of universities are now clustering together and saying, can we share faculty? Can we share infrastructure? So instead of actually running your expenses at such a high rate, let's say like three colleges in close vicinity say, okay, like let's have a common pool of faculty that we can share. We can share resources. We can share laboratory space. So that in a way reduces running costs and we're able to get more students. So I think at this point I'll hand it back to the panel. I'm sure they also have some great ideas, but I've already covered at least around 6 or 7 at this point. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Akhil. I think those were some of the valuable points that you've mentioned. And, definitely, we see that, how to balance the funds into the ecosystem for the private players also to enter in. I think this would be the long-term goal that we all have to vision to empower all the educationalists and the institutions. Yeah. So now moving on to Dr. Vikas. Dr. Vikas, as we see that a lot of inputs has coming from your university side also into the financial sector. So I would also like to understand how the transformation happened for the last 2 years. There was an ecosystem that was running, traditional way of learning, right? There was a setup done by the institutions. There is a platform that was given to the students. However, in these 2 years, when there was lack of infrastructure in terms of digital tabloids or the MacBooks or the laptops or the different devices, how these educational institutes or the financial groups have helped the student to overcome these challenges.
Thank you very much for inviting me, to this wonderful panel discussion. The question is very pertinent, Karun. Like how the universities have help the students. I agree with what Dr. Sani has mentioned. I personally believe that somehow, we in India believe that education means something which is very pious. Even you start a teacher is government teacher. If he starts tutoring students in the evening, there is a big halla hulla why a teacher is tutoring students after the normal office timings. But I think the direction which we are going to move is a big thing happened in last few months, which I think people are not noticing right now, which is Baiju's buying out Akash. I was under this kind of question in my mind that how these universities like us with large buildings, big campuses, how we are going to compete with these edtech companies. If you look at the enrollments, the highest enrollment in India is in upgrade, and upgrade has funds by Virat Kohli, Dhoni, and so many people have invested huge money. Apart from the very innovative owner who is there. So there is one system which has no dearth of funds, which have no controls over profiteering, which have no controls over scalability of growth. In our case, if we say we are university, as Dr. Sani was saying, profiteering becomes such a bad word that why you can, and then you have control by fee fixation committees, expectations. The same boy who is going to upgrade and paying large money or paying per hour basis to buy Jews, the same student coming to university, and then they start comparing fees ki government ka fees kitna, private ka fees kitna. I think we are at a very inflection point right now. Next 10 years are going to be make or break for institutions or universities like us. I personally believe, just adding to what Dr. Sani said and what Karan you asked, I think now good universities like us should not look for a student enrolling for 4 years, because even that is under question. With multiple entry, multiple exit, they might move out after 2 years, 3 years, go to some other university. I think now we should look something like what Stanford is doing or what MIT is doing or Harvard is doing. Let's look at having a student for next 40 years. If I enroll a student for 4 years, I will I will provide hand holding as my student, that even if after 5 years he has some requirement, some extra skill is required after 4 years, 5 years, he should come back to us, not go to upgrade. He should come back to ITM and say, sir, this is what new skill I require. So can I have a good certificate course from you? Because what is happening in India, the private education started only in 85, 90 only, then when it actually, and then what we are using, mushrooming of institutions. So why we are looking at institutions and universities with that eye, we are not accepting it as a a good cause. एक बड़ा फर्क है pious होने में और good cause होने में. The funding which is there, government is saying that 6.5% should go. For last 40 45 years, central government is saying that 6% of GDP should go towards education. What we are doing, only investing about 2%. Now look at 2% going into school education, higher education, technical education, prod shiksha, bacha kya? So the investment is not looked, the money which is going into it is being looked at as expense. Rather, it is basically an investment. So I personally believe that hand holding should be to that extent. And only if you are guiding, mentoring a student for long number of years, then only you can expect that once he become very successful in his career, he can think of donating to the institution or coming back and supporting to the institution. What happens now, after 4 years, you give the degree, you arrange a good job for him, and then there is a disconnect. Now, when then as alumni, you are inviting him once in a year for a for a alumni meet, whether he is coming or not coming, how many are coming or not coming, there is a big disconnect. I think the financing and the funding is going to be a bigger challenge now in the years to come, and the universities, the institutions should make a very strong connect with all these students, whether it is supporting them during their education years or supporting them after the education years, providing them a bridge so that the lifelong learning can continue. Only then the funding and financing can be I would say the aberration can be smoothened, or otherwise institutions and universities which are right now running only on the tuition fees, we are expecting good research, we are expecting good incubation, but how many institutions are having research support from government? How many institutions are having incubation support from MSME or DST or other bodies? While bright students are with every campus, bright students are with every university. The point is, we need to create a system where more autonomy should be given towards universities. The fee fixation committees should not be there. Not be there means there should be more margin. As Dr. Sani was saying, margin is very, very less now. It's very difficult. Architect is, the chartered accountant is going with us to the government body, showing all the expenses of last 2 years, 3 years, and then requesting them, to revise the fee, and the revision is very, very minimal. So I think this is a very big inflection point for higher education in India. We need to, with digital university coming, with foreign universities coming. In Gujarat, they have identified area where foreign universities can come and start their campus in Gift City. If these kind of challenges are going to come and we are not going to get autonomy regarding our funding and financing, I think the coming years are going to be full of challenge, for higher education institutions. That's current my understanding of the subject right now.
Thank you, Dr. Vikas. And some of the very valuable points, Dr. Vikas, you mentioned that, a 6% that is supposed to be happening into the spend into the education, only 2% has been going. And there is no bifurcation that in that 2% how much is going for the higher education, and what is going for the schools, and what the bifurcation is. So I'm pretty sure, in the times to come, we all have to think and understand how to improve and take this percentage ahead. There are more private players in the market who is trying to help the university space in order to give certain more value adds. But for that, we have to come to a point with an open mindset, how and where to. Thank you, Dr. Vikas. Thank you for your point. I'll come back to you later. And to move, the discussion point, and Dr. Vikas what mentioned, Dr. Prakash, I would like to have the further, discussion with you. And good to have you in the panel discussion today. So, what do you
Um,
think, Dr. Prakash?
I think Dr. Shahani really opened up a Pandora's box when he gave all examples of the West. Mm. And if I was second, I would have first attacked each one of his points and saying, where is it happening? which industry is willing to come forward and do the research, which university is doing it. Although I would be wrong in that, because today our CSR IR laboratories have become, in many senses, extremely self-sufficient, and they are not biting into the CSR funds as they used to. They are not. They are earning, I mean, with an exception of one or two, they're all earning very decent amount from research which is spent for research, and their salaries, which is a great thing. But can a young university like which Dr. Vikas is leading, or the rest of the panelists here are leading, can we compete with CSIR laboratories, who initial investment, in the manpower and equipment and this thing, there is no way we can compete with that. I also understand Dr. Vikas Singh's apprehensions about the Byju's taking over, because today, I mean, let's not look at funding alone. See the content we deliver, its value also is diminishing. Yeah, although we have to employ human beings and we have to pay them decent salaries, let's look at the content that is being delivered is available freely online if the student is willing to apply himself. And if the Byju's is bringing it to him, and he has that economy of scale, we can't really blame Byju's. On the contrary, I mean, I really like the idea of consortiums which share resources, which can bring down our costs to a great extent. At the same time, we also need to, I mean, I'm giving exactly the opposite model, meaning the same thing, saying, supposing we increase our bandwidth by creating, an online crowd which pays lesser fees, for whom my expenditures come down, and the experiential part of my learning is shared by these students on part-time basis. That means the students who are on campus are doing the experiments in the labs, and the whole this thing can be compressed considerably, and these batches can move in and move out. And with an infrastructure today where I am able to at best service about, say, 1,000 students, would I be able to service 10,000 students with the same infrastructure? This is another model I think we will have to consider, particularly because we will need to cater to those 10,000 students in future if we are looking at a GER ratio of 50%. I know this idea is quite chaotic, and it would be easy to puncture holes, but then that's probably the way towards which we need to move. In addition to what Dr. Singh identified, which is easily doable, but it's still, at the end of the day, you're all competitors with each other. When the admissions come, you would want the student to pay your fees, and fees are different from university to university. As Dr. Singh pointed out, I mean, he's worried about the Shikshan Shulk Samitis, but let's also look at the market forces will restrict to what fees we can demand from students. On one hand, there is this perception that private institutions are charging higher. Nobody seems to recognize, if you really compare the amount spent on each government university student, let's talk about the IIT engineer and an engineer who is coming from ITM or SPSU, or from DY Patil for that matter. You look at the amount spent in private institution is, let's accept it, within the fees he has paid, whereas in a government institution it runs into at least 25 to 30 lakhs. I mean, this was I'm the figure I'm telling you was is more than 10-15 years old. Today's figure may be even higher. So just compare, and having spent that, let's also be absolutely clear that it's not only the prerogative of IITs to have thrown up the best minds. I mean, they did throw up a large number of minds, wonderful minds. Even today, they are going to continue to throw up wonderful graduates for the simple reason in competition they are far ahead. Their input is so strong. I mean, IIT professors themselves agree that their input is so strong that even we professors can't spoil it any further. The output is always going to be so. They are, they have got the best of everything, and we have been asked to compete. We do such a wonderful job because at the end of the day, we also have thrown up those flashes in the pans, I'm sure, who have done a wonderful service to the nation and who have done very successful. Look at the Nadellas; they are not from the IIT. This thing, the first, crop of entrepreneurs did come from IITs and BITS Pilani, but the recent successes have all been outside the IITs and IIM domain, which means we are doing a very decent job of the thing. Only thing is, if it is to be made competitive and if we were to be allowed in so many ways. See, education, after all, is the need of the society. Initially, it was the government which was spending. We found out that the tax net is small, so what the government can spend is less. I mean, it's essentially a society's money which is being routed through the government. So the private education started. Where is the money coming from? The private education? I mean, it's your rich farmer who is not paying any tax, but he is willing to pay that high fees for his child's education. He has the money.
Education.
So this was the way of rerouting the money to which needed to come to education. I think today we need to find many more channels which need to come in from society into education. Dr. Shahani would cringe a bit if I suggest, look, why are we creating these graduates? These graduates are being created for the industry. So where is the industry spending money in the education of these graduates? I think that's a question we need to ask. I mean, the industry is very happy to tell us that, I mean, the percentages vary that these many graduates are unemployable. Where is your contribution to that expenditure as a society, as you are part of the integral part of the nation? So where is that amount coming in? I think these are the questions we need to ask and we need to tap. We are not saying that the industry should come and give 100 crores to either Dr. Vikas Singh or me or even Dr. Shani, but let them at least declare that we would be needing from 4 years down this line, we would be needing experts in this area. If students are willing to commit themselves, we will pay their entire fees. I think even that simple commitment should, help us to a great extent. Unfortunately, again, as I said, I have many chaotic ideas which once I'm sitting on my donkey, I come out with. But I thought, for the sake of discussion, some of these ideas must be picked up. Maybe park them because they are not practical today. But I think these are interesting ideas and perhaps utopian. But let's look at these ideas. So that's how
Indeed.
society has to
Yeah.
support education, because education is absolutely essential for everybody's future of the society, future of the nation. That's what I would like to submit.
Very rightly said, Dr. Srihari, and we certainly, all of us will believe in the same, that yes, there should be some new techniques coming in, there should be some new implementations, coming in, and all the educational institutes should be voicing it out, and not only voicing it out, implementing it in the near future. We should have that ability and that, I would say, the vision to put it across and take things ahead.
See,
So,
the parents were stakeholders, and we made them pay, right?
yeah,
So,
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
next the stakeholder is the industry. I mean, much bigger stakeholder for that matter.
Absolutely. Very, very thoughtful of that. Dr. Akhil, I would like to understand from you, if there is a new tool or if universities are trying to bring in some change when it comes to technology, how flexible they are to bring in those technology and implementing it. And again, who would be financing those tools and, these technologies if they would like to bring in?
So, okay, so I'm actually going to address, I think Dr. Honwar had actually come up with some interesting points. I'd actually sort of address that and move into, which actually links to the question that you have. So,
Sure.
just a little background, I was actually on the CII Education Task Force, right? And for some years, and the whole point of that was to connect industry to universities and get make kids more employable. In fact, just FYI, my doctorate is in employability. I did my with University of Liverpool, and I've actually sort of studied as to what makes a student employable by working with industries and universities globally. So again, that's maybe another discussion. But anyway, the point is that when we had the CII Education Task Force, what we said is that let's talk to colleges, let's talk to and figure out how can we integrate with their curriculum and try to get these kids more placeable, right? Great in theory, and we offered this to I think around a lot of engineering college and management institutions in Bombay to start off with. Out of all the institutions that we spoke to, four signed up, and out of which one of them was mine. So the reason being, I tell you why, and all due respect to all the great eminent people here, is that what happens is that when you are trying to make change in any well-running organization, right, it's very difficult to make change. So, for example, like let's say, look at this, right? So we said, okay, we need to help to change the curriculum. The first question is that how can you change the curriculum? The university doesn't allow us to do that. It's painful. We have to go to UGC or AIC to get changed. So that was one slow thing. The second thing is that till recently, placement of a student was honestly not a strong responsibility of the college or university. They said, look, we'll train you, we'll give you the degree, now go out and good luck to you. Some of the more, let's say, more proactive business schools had to do that because they had to promise the students jobs. They were more concerned, but most colleges were not. So it's more like saying, okay, look, we're running, we got, especially some of the older colleges, look, we have 60 seats, we have 100 students applying for the seats, we have a management quota, and we're happy, we don't need to change. So resistance to change was there. That's one thing. So again, not to say that it's not possible, but what has worked for universities globally is that they separate the academic and the administrative streams, right? So what happens in most institutions is they say, okay, who's head of my placement cell? Let me give it to a faculty member while he's teaching and doing research. Let him also handle placement cell.
Yeah.
Or I've got my own admin team. So there's no university connect with this thing. So therefore, it's difficult. So what happens for a lot of these innovative institutions globally, and some are doing it in India, is that they create a separate admin team that comes from industry. The first thing you should really do is actually create a proper placement cell, hire someone from the recruitment industry because they actually have the connection. And the question is, how do you pay for those salaries, which is not difficult because a couple of good quality salaries are not there. In fact, a lot of industries are quite happy to support the payment of these salaries if you're able to come up with quality students. Another thing that universities do is that don't forget, most of these industries actually pay 1 month's salary to entry level placement firms to hire these kids. So we work with a lot of banks, right? And a lot of banks say, look, we actually have a requirement for 100 salespeople in the Bombay market or the Baroda market. We are happy to go to recruitment firms and pay them the 1 month salary if you give me a good quality student. Why can't this actually be taken over by the colleges themselves? Why should they go to recruitment firm to do that? That's a good revenue model. In fact, it can even be a separate entity, a separate company within the university framework that allows you to earn money that way. Another model is that you have, and this is actually happening in India. There are a couple of edtech firms, Sunstone and iNurture, which they work with universities to again. I'm not part of them, but I'm just saying what they do is that they say we will take over administration of some courses of yours. We will do the student. We will get the students through our CRM platform. We will administer it. We will work with the teachers. We will have to place them. What they do is that they do something called income sharing agreements. So what they tell the student is that look, you can't afford, let's say, a 6 lakh MBA or 8 lakh MBA. What we will do is that we'll ask the student to pay 1.5 lakhs. We will actually work with an MBSC at the back end. And what happens is that we have an agreement with the students that when they get a job, we will take a share of their salary for a certain period of time so until they pay back their fees. So it's like a buy now, pay later scheme. The point being is that that actually allows them to attract a lot more students in that space. My point being is that if we as institutions try to come up, hire people from industry and create an administrative team that focuses on these aspects of industry connect, placement, then we might, it will be worth our while to do that. It's very difficult to get somebody who is from the academic industry and been working in academic all this time to sort of change their mindset. Let them do what they do well. Do research, do teaching, do well. Get the industry people, hire them on board, and get that happening that way. So just ending with the question that Karan, you had, is that when you look at integrating technology into institutions, and that's what some of these iNurture and guys are doing, it's very easy to get CRM systems, ERP systems, or universities. That's not the problem. Currently, I know that there was a notification by UGC saying that universities cannot tie with edtech companies to sell their courses online. But I think now the government may be sort of stepping back from that, because now with the new notification, they're saying that now do that. I would say again, ideally the university or the college should not really get their own faculty to handle the technology. Hire someone from the IT industry and get that skill set. So we try to do that with our own university. So I'm on the board of the HSNC University in Bombay, and we try to create an online course module. Unfortunately, we tried to work with our existing team; it didn't work out. So we had to hire someone from HP to build that up and scale it up, and that's worked very well. So maybe the 2 points I'd like to say is that if you can hire people from industry and find ways to cover their costs through revenue models like, let's say, placement or other things, you actually would be able to grow and be able to focus on academics and let these other innovative things happen with industry connects.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Sahani. And I'm pretty sure these tools and a combination of implementation of these technologies and efforts will definitely pay off. When it comes
Right.
to for the longer run. So I am pretty sure, we are missing Dr. Gankar. I think there is some network issues that has been coming on and off with her, transmissions. So let me just move the discussion to Dr. Vikas. Dr. Vikas, what do you think as a viewpoint, the same technology or the tools, if any university would like to bring in, and if there is a new technology that is to be, implemented? Because see, none of us were aware that this COVID era will come and how the changes will happen in the education system. And I'm pretty sure the universities have been charging or has charged 2 years back from the students and their parents, of course, as Dr. Prakash said, that if the parents have paid into those learning scheme of things, and now things have changed, that is also a debatable thing, whether online, offline, what the cost is, and rest of the thing. But let's be very practical in these things. Whenever a new technology or the implementation will come, of course it's going to impact in the revenues and it's going to impact the cost. And if that is there, then who will finance that? And if the universities are open to to maybe I would say experiment and give some new technologies or tools, then is there a way or a bandwidth for the universities to play around with the monies they have already taken from the parents in terms of the education fee, or the admission fee, I would like to say.
Karan, I would say one thing to start this, very interesting point which you have raised. In India, you won't find maybe a single parent who would say that my kids are going to a school or college which is poorer or lesser known or lesser good college than the college I went to. Every parent, whatever from lower income group or middle income group or higher income group, they have a goal that my kid should go to a better school or better college. Right now, we are 135 crore country, and for the first time, we are reaching the stage of $2,000 per capita kind of income. So now we are at a very inflection point. I do not find that another 5 years, 10 years, this supply of money would be a such a big challenge. Everybody, you look at 70 years old person or 5-year-old kid, they all are having mobile phones. They all are very tech savvy, and they are eager to And what Dr. Sani mentioned, employability. I believe we need to look at the model slightly. Even today in MBA program, for employability you need knowledge, skill, behavior, and attitude. Now we are so many courses are there in a simple MBA program on marketing management one, organization behavior, principles of management. All that is knowledge. You can ask the student to enroll three Coursera programs or three online programs and do that part there. When they are coming to classroom, this LTP model is very evident. Lecture, tutorial, practical. I believe that now with this new technology, permission of UGC, that 40% courses can be online, 40% of the offline courses can also be delivered online. I think now is the time for universities to reform and transform themselves. Why I'm saying this? The focus of classroom teaching or focus of university should be when the student is in the campus on skill building, on behavior, on maybe communication skills, the things that they require for becoming employable and being contributing to the society, to the industry at large. My personal opinion is that everybody's tech savvy now. Finance is not going to be a problem now. We have NBFCs which are available, which are going to these kids which are coming from Ukraine or going to overseas locations. They are paying good 30, 40, 50 lakhs per year. So paying capacity of parents is not the challenge. The challenge is we should, as higher education institutions, transform ourselves. Let's make our classroom interesting. Let's make the activities interesting. Let us work with outcome based education perspective, that we will use technology, we'll train our teachers, we'll have tech savvy students, tech savvy classrooms, tech savvy teachers, and then make students. ROI is very important, return on investment. They are ready to pay fees, but the point is, what is the return on their investment on higher education? I believe majorly Indian higher education, especially private and both government, we are not working on ROI of the fees. We are charging fees within those margins, but we are not actually looking at what returns students are getting out of the fees that they are paying to us. We are only focused on knowledge. I think skill development, employability, those courses, that environment, ambience in the campus is more important. Use technology to the extent possible. And I think if we can do that, money will not be an issue. Maybe for another 5 years, we have lot many NBFCs, we have lot many bodies which are there to. Don't go to private, don't go to those government, public sector banks. They might be not readily giving the education loans, but now there are so many good NBFCs which will give you EMIs for 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 7 years. And like Dr. Sani was mentioning, this can be supported by NBFCs. So I think use of technology, transformation of the university education institutions is more important rather than funding support for the students. The students will arrange funds, their parents are willing, NBFCs are willing. If you have good ROI model, the students will come, funds can be arranged. It should be very technology driven and working on skills, behavior, and attitude, less on that theory book kind of knowledge delivery.
Thank you, Dr. Vikas. And as you rightly said, that funding is not a problem. Every parent want to make sure that upskilling should be given to every student, or their children should get upskilled from where they have started on, right? So, in order to bring that change, you mean to say that all the educational institutes are ready to adapt the technology. However, the funding can be taken care of. Maybe if there are tools available in the market to provide the corporate guidance, to get them placed, to get them more upskilled tools, to have more industry knowledge, that is also acceptable.
you know like uh, in fact higher education institutions are not ready to change. The problem lies at that place. We are still having teachers who are very kind of knowledge oriented. They will only take if you look at the syllabus, if you talk to your HOD of the department and say that let's revamp the MBA program, you will find a lot of resistance from faculty members. I can tell them that, okay, bring somebody from industry. He will give the 2 hours theory class. Let the faculty of the on the campus take care of tutorials and practicals. Teaching will be taken care by corporate people, while the learning part, let's disjoin the teaching and learning process. Teaching is done by lectures are done by maybe people from industry, that what they're actually using in industry in a particular domain, and the teachers on field in classroom, they are finding out the learning gaps, that where the learning is not taking place, making those questionnaires, making those test papers, making that assessment schedule, and ensuring that the learning goes to that level. Here, there is a big reluctance by education institutions, universities, and teachers also. I think that is the part, which is where technology can play a very significant role. I'm very happy that new education policy, I'm very happy that UGC are taking steps in the right direction. 40% courses can be online. Look at the autonomy which is given to us. 40% of offline courses can be delivered by the online. We can invite industry people. They will not charge. If you are vice president of a Reliance group, you will not charge very hefty from the university. You will be very happy to share your expertise with the students. The point is, there is a reluctance from the side of the universities. It is time for us to transform and make the best use of this opportunity. Next 5 years, I'm again saying, are going to be very critical, for higher education direction in India.
Thank you, Dr. Vikas. And as you rightly said, next 5 years, it is like about to bring the change. Since you are from the industry, I think the change is starting pretty soon, as the new education policy also is putting its way forward, deepen into the roots. Now, coming to Dr. Prakash, Dr. Prakash, as Dr. Sahani also and Dr. Vikas also mentioned that the tools can be implemented. Money is not a problem. The parents can finance. The monies can come in, and as NBFC also is a route to provide the monies into the system for bringing in tools. What do you think? What could be the challenges of the private players or the private monies coming in into the education system to get these tools on board? Is there any downside of it also?
See, any money which comes in will want to go out after growing. The fact that the government does not look at it is purely because it keeps, it's in the comfort that it can always, put hands in the pockets of the middle class salaried group. So the downside is that this money will want to grow and go back from where it came from. It needs to keep circulating. Money can't just come one way and be spent. For that you need a lot of the character in the society. I'm actually thankful to Dr. Shahani for giving a very decent, form to my poetic ideas and making them look plausible and practicable. Except that you look at the industry today, quite often they are paying peanuts and they will be very happy to pay that 1 month's salary. It won't suffice. I'm looking at more like a couple of years salary because the student is spending at least 2 to 3 years, if not 4 to 5 years with the universities. So that's the difference, Dr. Shani. And I agree with Dr. Singh saying that these are very critical years because we are, if we don't change, we are in the danger of, I keep looking at what happened to the Kodak company. You know, they never thought cameras will be out of date, and the reels and the prints, and where are they today? I think we must keep telling our faculty members, look, we are in the danger of becoming a Kodak, and we will probably, all the infrastructure, all the faculty, this entire structure will probably go into a museum. And because today UGC, everybody, I mean, the pandemic has sort of diluted all the resistance there was there against online education and things like that. And UGC is rightly coming up, they're saying 40%. Obviously, there will be pressure. The financial pressures will make them change that 40% to 60%, 70%. And you look at Google. Google does not want a degree for you to be employable. And if that expands, people will build a bouquet of skill sets and knowledge and use that to earn money. And the universities, as we know today, will have no role to play in that society. So either if we really want to be in the business, we really want to get into the game as the game is changing. You need to adopt. I mean, this is what happened to Sunil Gavaskar when one day internationals came in, and to people like Rahul Dravid when T20 started. I think we really need to understand that while Rahul Dravid and Sunil Gavaskar both retired with handsome kitty in their bags. The universities, the organizations we represent here can't retire, you know, in that form, because it's very important for the universities to exist, to change according to the needs of the times. I'm sure the financial models will develop in spite of chaotic ideas. There will be people like Dr. Shahani who will, give it some respectability and make it work. I'm sure the pressures will force. See, today a lot of industrial houses have started their own universities. That's how it's coming back in. But are they willing to, treat them as sinks for CSR funds? I'm not sure, because each of these entities also are looked as, if not profit centers, self-sustained systems. um, I would be happy if some of these corporate universities were charging zero fees and admitting students based purely on merit, and saying that we will take care of all your expenses. I think that is the model towards which we will have to move eventually, if we have to succeed and if we have to increase the bandwidth. I fully agree with Dr. Singh. uh, Times are changing. If you don't change with the time, the change will overtake you, and you will be forced to perish. I think it's time to get off my donkey again, and maybe I have added a few more chaotic ideas to some of my earlier ones, because we as a university will have to keep doors open for, like Dr. Singh earlier mentioned, alumni to come back in both as a learner as well as a teacher, both. Either way, we'll have to facilitate that. We'll have to recognize certifications. We'll have to, get on with this game of banking credits and creating credits, and accept the challenges associated with it. Some of our faculty members will resist that, no doubt. But I think as leaders, if we start recognizing, and sometimes, some leaders are too eager and they arrive before time, and then those ideas get a bad name. Even that, I think, we'll have to be very careful about. But at the same time, we must recognize that the entire learning mechanisms will change. Today, a lot of industries accept online certifications for promotions. The day will not be very far away if industry says, to hell with this degree. It's UGC recognized, it's CICT recognized, it's government recognized or not recognized. I don't care. I will find a person with the knowledge set, with skill set, with the attitude set, and I will employ him. I'm sure Dr. Sahani, since he is an expert in employability, he will be able to further qualify this statement and add value to it. But thank you. It's really been wonderful, Karun, to be in this discussion. It's been a great learning experience for myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Srihari. And I would say, some of the very valuable inputs we've got from all of you. And as we rightly said that, there are financial tools available, the well is there, there are many mediums who will help the system, in terms of the finance. Now, it totally depends on us how to bring the change, who will ring the bell, who will tell the new platforms to be enabled within the system to take the education system forward. As we said, upskilling is very important in every domain. So now I would say the educational systems also require some upskilling. And this is here, I would like to announce that if we would like, if the APEC team can, play a small video of Intercell, because what we are into is we provide virtual mentoring to the students. As Dr. Akhil mentioned that, some industry people should come in. So we have created a platform for Intercell, and we are helping the educational institutions. So I would like to, tell the APEC team to kindly present a small video that can tell about itself. And we are joining hand with the universities for this mentoring. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
हम सब के लिए बीते साल कठिन थे और अब ये नया वायरस, लेकिन समय एक सा नहीं होता। इतिहास गवाह है इस बात का। We need to remain optimistic about the future, especially our younger generation who are pursuing university education, जो हमारा future है। आजकल टेक्नोलॉजी एडवांसेस एंड अ फास्ट चेंजिंग जॉब मार्केट में स्टूडेंट्स और पेरेंट्स दोनों को बहुत कंफ्यूज कर दिया है। आप कहां पढ़ेंगे, इंडिया या अब्रॉड? आप क्या पढ़ेंगे? शुड यू फोकस ऑन लर्निंग और स्किल डेवलपमेंट? आपके लिए कौन सा प्रोफेशनल फील्ड बेस्ट है? एंड व्हाट इज द राइट करियर पाथ फॉर यू इन दिस सिचुएशन ऑफ कोविड? द आंसर इज इंटरसेल, अपनी तरह का पहला वर्चुअल नेटवर्क फॉर मेंटरिंग द यूथ ऑफ इंडिया। ये नेटवर्क आपको एक्सेस देगा टू ग्लोबल इंडस्ट्री एक्सपर्ट्स एंड प्रोफेशनल्स हु कैन गाइड यू टुवर्ड्स योर ड्रीम करियर। कौन सा कोर्स, कौन सा करियर आपकी पर्सनैलिटी और एप्टीट्यूड के लिए है? आप जॉब मार्केट में कैसे सफल हो सकते हैं? हाउ यू शुड प्रिपेयर फॉर योर इंटरव्यू एंड आंसर्स टू मेनी अदर सच क्वेश्चंस। हम देश भर की यूनिवर्सिटीज के साथ हाथ जोड़ रहे हैं। कम टू इंटरसेल, अब सब होंगे कामयाब। जय हिंद।